Hey everybody, welcome back to Marvel Champions Monthly or MCM podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kennedy Hawk. I have with me another host with me today. I have Terrence. How's it going, Terrence?
Pretty good. First episode of 2025.
We are in 2025. Is it not exciting? How
Can
was
you
your new
believe
year?
it? How's the new year going for you?
It's going good. We moved to the office again, as you can see from the background. These aren't just images. We just keep moving the computer desk because that's what I do with my life. It's fun, but it's in a good
New
spot now. In theory, a permanent spot. We'll see.
New year, new office. So permanent
New
spot
year,
till
new office, just
2026.
in the loft, same thing.
Yeah.
So if a child walks out this way, I'm just going to tell him to go to that room and play games until we're done.
Nice.
Mario Kart or whatever is in there. I don't even know anymore. What about you? How's the new year?
It's gone all right. Made it back to work again. That job thing. And yeah. I feel like the new year just reminds me that Con of Heroes is right around the corner. And we're
Wow,
behind all the time.
that's going to be one of our topics for today. So we'll get to that because we're a little bit ahead on Kana Heroes this year. And it might not feel like that to you, but it feels like it to me. So that's important. That's what we really care about. What we're going to do for MCM is we're going to have two segments this week. We're going to have our segment one, which is sort of our recollection of 2024 and what we're looking forward to going into 2025. And then our second topic will be all about Con of Heroes card design, with us talking to each other about some of the designs we bounced around, and then we'll be spoiling two cards from one of the Con of Heroes modular sets, or a double-sided card. So, you ready to remember the year that was 2024? It was so long ago.
It was long ago.
Yeah, a long time ago in the galaxy that was right here. It was 2024. We only had one wave of Marvel Champions. It was the Dark Times, right? But there were lots of cool things that happened. So I had a couple questions that I feverishly sent to you 3 minutes before this, so you're super prepared. So I'll let you pick which question you want to answer first. What topic should we go over? It's our favorites from 2025. Four. Yeah.
Does 2024 mean there's only four questions? And
No,
so,
there
so
are more
next
than
year we have to
Fantastic
do
Four
five
questions.
questions? Yeah. I guess I'll start. What is your favorite scenario that came out in
My
2024?
favorite scenario, well, we only had five scenarios, right? So 20% chance you're going to get it right. I liked a lot of the scenarios in the Age of Apocalypse box. I liked Four Horsemen. I really liked Dark Beast. I think he's a sleeper. But I think my favorite scenario was the final Apocalypse that can flip between the three forms. I had a really fun game at Con of Heroes where a player was like trying to buff us all up with float like a butterfly and some other like things that depended on him putting a status onto the villain. And every time they got the upgrade onto everybody, Apocalypse would immediately flip and become stalwart and, and lose confused. Or like we'd all draw caught off guard somehow, like two turns in a row, and lose our float like a butterflies. So there's lots of good memories there. But I think what's cool about that is that it's hard to prepare for what form Apocalypse is going to end up in. You might plan your game plan around a certain form, and then you either have to sit in a holding pattern waiting for that form to come up, or you plan for the next turn and have your plans foiled by the villain's triple-sided form, which I thought was fun. So that was my favorite scenario from the Age of Apocalypse campaign box. What about you?
Mine was one that you mentioned, Dark Beast, which I guess if you read the instructions and actually do it properly, it is also potentially hard to prepare for because you don't know what environment you're going to deal with. So it came with three kind of modular sets that you can actually use outside of Dark Beast, but are explicitly included for that scenario. And this time around, the environments have a special effect that Dark Beast triggers when he activates, and he has cards in his scenario pack that also kind of trigger them as well. So really kind of built against that particular mechanic. And depending on what you get, it can either apply like health pressure, take a damage, increase threat, etc. And so I like it because even though it's not a very complex scenario at all, it does feel different each time you play it, depending on the scenarios that, or the environments that you're mixing in those modular sets. And I feel like it's one of those scenarios that I love, especially for stuff like fan content or kind of heroes. Reminds me a lot of like the Mojo pack, right? Where if people came up with extra, you know, other modular
Settings,
environments,
stuff. Yeah.
you can really just plug it into Dark Beast and kind of make it really replayable, right?
And we never got Beast as a hero, so that was intended to, I guess, fill the void of the fifth original member of the X-Men. So I guess that can kind of lead us into our next question. We had 5 scenarios, we had 6 heroes. So who was your favorite hero from 2024?
I think my favorite hero is probably Magic. I really like the kind of top deck mechanic. I feel like that's been one of the discard off the top of the deck and kind of shenanigans with all that is a new thing that came out in the mutants, and I feel like we saw kind of different pieces of that each cycle
Mm-hmm.
for the 3 waves, and it was neat to kind of see the Gandalf, I guess, Lord of the Rings implementation in Marvel. And I think obviously like having all our armors and stuff, was fun to kind of try to make that work and, scry and manipulate the deck. So obviously like shield shenanigans worked really well there. But I did also like that they added allies like Legion and things like that, where the obvious thing is like if you have wilds, it triggers everything
Mm-hmm.
on her, stuff, but doesn't trigger for Legion. So you have choices to make as you're deck building. So I think it opened the door for a lot of neat things there. And then plus you're a Mystic, so you're just cycling through your cards like crazy.
Insane. Mystics. Mine was not nearly as top deck heavy, or maybe he was if you had to top deck the right cards. But my favorite hero this wave was Iceman, mainly because I really like the character Iceman. Like Bobby Drake's been one of my favorites from the X-Men for a long time. But also I really liked his mechanic, placing the frostbite on different characters and figuring out what character to place it on when you had a choice. I like the idea of debuffing the enemy to help the team in multiplayer and to sustain yourself in solo. And I really liked the archetype that came along with it in aggression. I feel like it doesn't really work in a lot of aggression heroes yet. But with Iceman and with Cyclops, some of those do something if the enemy has a player upgrade attached cards are really fun. I liked Iceman's ability. I'm always a little worried when there's a character that has like a lot of one of cards, especially like their critical cards. But his were pretty cool. And we got 2 allies, again, sort of like Bishop and Domino. Did Domino have 2 allies in her kit, I think? And non-unique allies at that. So that was pretty cool. It was chill. It was chill. And this
Nice.
was a long wave, right? I think the box came out in March, and then Magneto finally came out in November. So that's like almost the entirety of the year for one wave. So there was a lot of hype as the hero packs came out. I felt like once they got spoiled what the hero was going to be, you had to wait the 2 months for it to come out, and it was agonizing waiting for those heroes. I know there's a lot of people that would be ashamed that neither of us said Nightcrawler. I liked Nightcrawler a lot too, but Bobby J did it for me. Going with
Yeah, well, I try not to do recency bias, so try
Oh,
to
I
look
try to.
through, try to.
When I'm building decks, at least.
Would you have preferred, I guess, in 2024 if they released all the heroes and then there was a large gap, or do you like that they spread it out?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't mind an every other month cadence if we're gonna get 2 hero packs like the original intention was when they did a swaparoo to that. I think with it was with Nova and Ironheart where they started releasing them like in pairs. And I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just what happened with supply and demand or supply chain. I don't mind that. It's really nice actually to get 2 heroes at the same time because then if your group's getting together, 2 of you get to try a new hero, the other 2 can like use the aspect cards from that hero and you can all get to play with new stuff, which is fun. But like when things are spread out too much, right, it doesn't encourage the group to get together nearly as much at the local store, right? Magneto came out in November. Shield doesn't come out till February. Our local store has kind of trickled down to maybe 1 or 2 people showing up while we wait for new things to happen. So I would much prefer the original, like way back when LCG intent, where you just had a pack a month and they'd always miss December. It was very predictable, but every once in a while there'd be those like 6 month gaps, and those really hurt. A 2 month gap's definitely better than a 6 month gap, but like only 6 things in a year is rough for me, at least, to hold attention, right?
Yeah. No, I mean I agree with that, but if I guess I'm just thinking if they're only going to release that much content, like they could have jammed it all
Just
out by the
more.
summer and then
Give us
you
more. I'll just buy another Red Skull box. It's okay. So I guess we've done favorite scenario. We've done favorite hero from 2024. But I'd want us to stop with favorites for a minute and just ask, what do you think about the state of Marvel Champions? What is the state of the game right now?
I think the state of the game is in a really good spot.
Agree.
I think the mutant wave has been really good for the game. I guess unless you don't like mutants, then you're stuck for it for 3 years. I like even if you take the comics and the lore and all that stuff aside, I feel like Mutant Genesis. I think like coming off Sinister Motives and going to Mutant Genesis, the game kind of really has been hitting its stride.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've said this in a lot of LCGs. I think it takes up to about like the 3 year mark before the game really gets going, as far as like a large enough card pool, the designers, I guess, playing around with the system long enough. Like, of course, they design the game and stuff like that, but you know, it's very different because they always say it takes them about what, like 2 years. They like do content 2 years ahead of time, so it does take about 3-ish years before they kind of really get to incorporate that first initial set of feedback and see what the players are doing. And so I do think, you know, like until year 3 or 4, like it just hits this like critical moment in all these kind of games that we've seen. Lord of the Rings, Arkham, Marvel as well is no exception to that. And you just get enough archetypes where in any single aspect, there's multiple ways and things to like build in an aspect. Very good, right? And so I don't necessarily like love every single campaign. Complaints about the scenarios we talk about, our favorite scenarios. Like I'd be happy to play almost all of them. Like they're continuing to really develop that multi-villain kind of concept, and it's different each time, right? And so we're far away from like the original Wrecking Crew kind of design, and so it's just really great to kind of see that. And just the deck building mechanics and stuff. Like even if you don't like a hero pack, it's hard to like not pick it up because I think both Nightcrawler, Magneto, and Iceman, like those 3 packs just this year alone have introduced whole new or fleshed out archetypes that didn't really exist, right? The attack upgrade, player upgrade, like kind of aggression thing, change of fortune, and then obviously all the like ally sacrifice stuff in Magneto. Like those are basically 3 whole new archetypes that didn't exist in the game before.
Yeah, they didn't have
all in 1 year, which is crazy,
all in
right?
one cycle. Yeah, and I want to say the same thing, right? I think that we're in a really good state right now. I think the last 3 boxes plus Mojo Mania, like that's 18 scenarios or something like that. I can't think of one that I would call a dud in those 18 scenarios. I would enjoy playing any 18 of them, and I'm not the biggest mutant person in the world. So for me, that's huge. And like you said, it takes a while to incorporate feedback. So if we look at what happened a year and a half before Mutant Genesis, April 2nd of 2021, Galaxy's Most Wanted came out. We know that the community had a pretty negative reaction to Galaxy's Most Wanted. Maybe Hone didn't, because Hone loves it, right? But a year and a half later, September 30th of 2022, Mutant Genesis comes out. So if it takes about a year and a half to incorporate feedback from the community, it seems like the feedback was well taken from back then, even though people were pretty upset about Galaxy's Most Wanted at the time. But it seems like they really took that and spun it around into some great scenario boxes, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just not kind of continuing on that, talking about the state of the game, though, right? Like, we're 5 years in, and we have 3 full-time designers on the game, right? That's +1 than we had before, except I guess at the start when Nate was part of the design team for the core set, but I think that didn't last very long after that. But so like 3 full-time designers, you know, Tony leading the charge there, and Caleb kind of moving on. You know, it's a big deal for the game, right? Kind of this changeover, and then them kind of investing a whole net new person full-time on the game. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. It's an exciting time to see what comes out from the design team. I'm super hyped for the Shield box. Like to me, it's probably going to be one of the top boxes just because I like the theme, but we'll see. I think that the future looks bright with the Shield box and with the revamped design team building up the stable. I'm hoping we can get back to more than just 6 releases a year or 5 releases a year, and that'll be awesome for the game. I think that we're in a really good spot design-wise. Both like the design team seems supported, but also I feel like the designs, like you said, are at their pinnacle. And we're kind of at that like checkpoint that happens for all these LCGs. I've played a lot of LCGs by FFG. I played Netrunner. I played Star Wars. I played Conquest, which only lasted like 1.5 cycles. And this is usually the point where they figure out like, is this game going to last long term? Should we have canceled it by now? That's what happened with like Game of Thrones 2. That's what happened with Star Wars. And it doesn't look like it's happening here. At least we haven't been told it is. We have Shield and some silhouettes to guess at. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I feel like they're canceling it. They won't put another person on it.
Yeah, I hope not.
It's kind of a terrible business decision if they're going to do that. I think you just have to play all the co-op ones. I feel like Lord of the Rings was 9-10 years, right? And basically just Caleb after MJ left to go do Arkham, and then Arkham is still chucking along and has survived post MJ, right? That was her baby for sure. And that has to be coming up on what, like 9 years, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, 7 or 8. I think that co-op games really had the chance to survive like the pandemic, right? And I think competitive games really struggled with that. And out of the pandemic came this resurgence of TCGs, and now it's really hard to get into the competitive market with the release cadence that an LCG wants to have. So I think that co-op LCGs make the most sense right now, even though it makes me sad sometimes. I like my competitive games too.
Just make more friends, man.
I do make friends, but by making enemies. All right, back to our favorites. So what was your favorite deck from 2024 that you played and made and piloted and all that jazz?
One of the decks I've been playing, I feel like a bunch recently, so this is some recency bias. I was kind of looking through the decks I've played this year, but building on top of kind of Iceman and all that other stuff has been the whole Take That kind of card and revisiting kind of Gatekeeper and those upgrades with Spider-Man. Because he does have those 2 spider tracers in there, so he has access to a few more upgrades, and it's been fun doing some of that true solo on some of the scenarios where you don't have to do a ton of side scheme stuff, because that can be kind of rough. But I think Gatekeeper plus Take That has been a really fun combo of you're giving people that extra health, but you do have Take That to kind of do a good amount of damage there. And so being able to get 4 threat removal plus remove a minion feels pretty good. And then you can, if you have a Spider Tracer on that, like that's another 3 threat from something else. It can really kind of help keep that stuff in check. And then if you're doing Marked or any of those things, you can get Overkill on top of that. So Spider-Man can also easily play Hone Technique with access to Mental and the web shooters, right? So Take That becomes a 10 damage card at that point. And you can easily trigger that Mental, right, with Ingenuity or something like that. So he does a pretty good job of that. And then since he has that 3 defense, you're defending, but it's fine because you're just relying on those kind of events to make up for it. So yeah. I feel like it's really fit his kit, and I feel like I've just been impressed with he's a core set hero and how much mileage he gets out of kind of all these new archetypes. Seems to have it all.
Sweet. For me, I've really opened up my playstyle to not just being control, build, and then kill the villain at the end when I'm like a superhero. And I've leaned more into like a tempo playstyle and even a rush playstyle where I like get my damage in while I can, and then I retreat to alter ego form, and I hope our multiplayer team can survive that for a turn. So I've really started to appreciate Star-Lord more often. So I've played a lot of Star-Lord protection with repurpose and all sorts of shenanigans with him. And it can be really fun to burst for a lot of damage and then duck into alter ego form for a turn and then pop back up and burst for a lot of damage one more time before hopefully you've won or lost. And that's been fun. And then the other isn't like a specific deck, but especially in the fall and later in the summer, I had the fortune to bring a lot of coworkers to our local game night. So it was a lot of people that hadn't played before. Maybe they had played once with me, but not with a 4-player thing at a game store. And they don't have their own collections, so I'm building decks for them. So I've never really focused a lot on... I've always focused on like multiplayer deck building, right? Oh, I should bring 3 skilled investigators because those cards are good. But like synergy between 2 decks and like building 2 decks to like specifically have upgrades that get passed to the other deck to make them more powerful. And that's been really fun, right? Building a deck to know I'm going to have a play partner that's going to play this deck with me so that we can pass the right upgrades to each other so that we all feel like Spider-Woman, like we have access to 2 aspects, which I guess is just saying like, hey, I've been playing co-op in a co-op game, but to build both the decks is super fun. So done a lot of that too.
So you should play some Lord of the Rings is what you're saying.
No, no. I have some of it. I don't know if I need to play it though. Not when I have good Marvel cards to. All right. One other thing from 2024 before we get on to a few more questions is the weekly challenges. Did you want to talk about the weekly challenges from FFG?
I did. This was a thing I guess I wasn't expecting them to do coming into. I guess I didn't know what to expect from them for the 5 year anniversary. And for me, this has been one of the most memorable things coming into this last year. I think it has paired really well with the fact that, I was asking you the question on would you rather, how do you deal with the fact that there just aren't a lot of releases and how do you get people to play the game at the table? And for me, the weekly challenges have been mostly pretty good. I don't love all of them, but it's been. I've done Marvel Monday with a friend of mine, and basically every Monday night we get together and they post the challenges, earlier that day, and then at the evening we basically figure out like what hero do you want to play, how do you want to do this challenge. So my favorites have generally not been a lot of the hero restricted ones where it's like you need to do a thing with a hero, but a lot of the kind of scenario ones, right, where it's like give Rhino all the like superpower, modulars plus Infinity Gauntlet, figure out a way to win. And maybe this is just my Lord of the Rings kind of speaking to me, but it's been fun. I think as a veteran player and playing with someone else to have access to kind of two minds to figure out, okay, how do we solve this problem, right? And we don't always win that the first time we play it, so they definitely been challenging. And you really have to like dig deep for some of these of like, man, I have to do some really niche thing because this is really oppressive in this very specific way, right? And so like that Rhino challenge was really hard, and then we played one together with Ultron, right? Like I feel like Ultron's can be hard, but it generally isn't in the top list of like really, really hard scenarios, but that was a really challenging scenario and we brought totally the wrong decks.
It was fine. It was fine.
It's fine.
That was the Sentinels Ultron one, right?
Yeah, the Sentinels Ultron one. But I think it's fun because similar to I think some of the challenge stuff that I've done for kind of heroes is like they're willing to kind of break the rules a little bit in the game where it's like that Sentinels one with Ultron. It's like put the Sentinels modular and then basically both the drones and the Sentinels share the Sentinel and drone traits, right? And so Ultron's triggering, and what's different now is that those Sentinels aren't measly 1/1 drones, it turns out. And so I think it really keeps the game fresh. And more than anything, like, you're talking about like there isn't new content, so people don't come to the store to play, but it was like a really good excuse to not have to think about what to play each week. Like that FG that worked for you, right? And so you just had to show up and figure out how to play the game together. And I thought that was really fun. And I'm definitely kind of sad that it ended at the end of 2024. And so I hope they potentially bring some of that back.
I enjoyed the challenges, but I mainly played them solo when I got to play them because our play group is a lot more casual than I think your group is. And we don't necessarily have like a Discord or a way to communicate. It's just like a store hosts a bunch of people on Thursday nights. So the first couple challenges, I showed up expecting people to want to play the challenge, and they read it and they were like, oh, that's way too complicated or way too hard. And none of them were prepared for it or wanted to play it. I got them to do a couple of them, but nobody ever enjoyed them. So eventually I just sort of resorted to like playing them solo or trying to play them online, which is always difficult to do as well. So for me, I felt like the challenges tried to make the game a little more Lord of the Rings like, which was something I didn't like in Lord of the Rings, so they weren't the biggest hit with me, but I'm glad they did them and did something to be entertaining. I'd be happy if they just like put specific modular sets to recommend with certain scenarios and had like a form to gather statistics so we could say like, oh, 8,000 people played this scenario and 6,000 people won. Like that would be cool enough for me to have engagement with the community and the game. I don't need the necessary like over the top portion, or maybe not over the top, but the rules bending portion that they do. But it's good that it's there for people that like it. Now you hate me. It's okay.
No, I mean,
I enjoy them. If I had more time to play them, I would probably enjoy them. If I had the group to play them with, but I don't currently have that in my local play group. So
yeah, to be fair, I did all mine with a remote person. So
okay.
because no one's meeting up at like 10 p.m. on a Monday night to play this thing. So
Why not? That's when
turns
we
out people
record.
work
That's
on
right.
Tuesday. So being able to like play remote was a big thing because yeah, like you're saying, we talked on Discord basically and kind of
Plan your decks, plan your strategy.
yeah, plan our decks, plan our strategy,
I do
and
think it would
play.
be really cool if they made like a 25 card pack that was the 25 challenges or whatever, and like had it so you could shuffle them and draw a random one or something like that. That would be really fun. I don't know if we'll get that, but that'd be cool. I'd be
Yeah,
happy with it.
yeah, but it was just fun to see them do something different, and kind of
Hmm.
put content out there beyond obviously the content. Like they were clearly like hamstrung on what they could release this year, last year. Like so, it was nice to see them
Did
kind of
you
do other
do you like
things.
the challenges better than like when they did the print and play Ronin module? What would you rather have? Some print and play modules or the challenges?
Like the print and play Ronin module, I think the thing that kind of sucks about the print and play Ronin module is that it's really hard to print it.
Yeah,
And so I think if they sold it or something, I would have liked it where I didn't have to do a lot of work, but it was work at the time when I was sleeving clears,
oh,
which I
yeah,
don't do anymore.
nerd.
But I know a lot of people do, and it's kind of annoying to get someone to print the Marvel backs and kind of, like I feel like it's just a higher barrier to entry, right? And
Yep, totally
so,
fair.
but I do like it because it is new content and stuff. But what I liked about the challenges was it was stuff you could do with the content that you already owned, and you didn't have to do extra work. And so there's something really nice about that because it probably takes them a good chunk of time to do something like the Ronin modular, whereas they pumped out a ton of challenges in the span of like literally every week for the entire year, which was pretty impressive when they started it in the summer. They didn't miss a week.
Last topic, or our last question before we move on to topic two, is like the 5 year celebration of Marvel Champions. Beyond just 2024, do you have like a top two or three memories from Marvel Champions, all inclusive? Not
I
counting Con
mean,
of Heroes.
yeah,
Not allowed. Not allowed.
not allowed. No kind of
Yeah.
heroes.
Banned.
Banned. I mean, I say this a bunch of times, but I think there's I rewind time at that first Gen Con when I got to play Marvel Champions at that demo table, and then it was excruciatingly painful to have to wait until November before it came out.
October 30th fun.
I don't think my store got it till November though.
Lame.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just really fun to kind of play it for the first time and see how streamlined it was. I still remember that. It was also like before the pandemic, I guess. So it was like the last time
The last time you
before
got
the
to see
world
people.
changed. Yeah. And then everything changed, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of my memories for the last 5 years, if you take out Kind of Heroes, has just been online, right?
Hmm.
We were just starting a local Austin group, and then it immediately died. And it's been, it's been interesting, I guess, in that respect. Like, I think, unlike many other the kind of games during that, for the co-op LCGs, like this one has had to endure kind of that piece of it, where so much stuff has been done online.
I also feel like, and I don't. Maybe this isn't true. Maybe this is just I wasn't aware of Discord and things like that when the other LCGs were coming out originally. But I feel like this is the first LCG that's come out in this like new age of social media technology where people like are chatting 24/7 on a Discord, which has been pretty cool, right? There's people from all over the world all excited about the same game. Whether or not it releases on the same day is a different question. But like when I was playing Star Wars LCG back in the day, we had like the FFG forums, and then we had Card Game DB, which was like I don't know, like a nice GeoCities like forum, and people flocked to it, and that's how people communicated about the game. Other than like local groups like having text chains and stuff like that, it's crazy to think how like community forming for a card game has changed from just a decade ago. For me, that's the big thing, is that like the community for this game has been really cool, which is fun to see. It's been fun to see it evolve over the years and survive through the pandemic together, so that's been pretty cool.
Yep. BGG is a thing, which also feels like a GeoCities stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? Somehow they survived.
Still going strong. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been really neat. People, I think both. I think Arkham came out when Discord was becoming a thing, and Lord of the
That
Rings
could be
ever
right.
predated it. And yeah, like I remember the first few years of my time in Lord of the Rings, that there was no deck building site besides the card game DB1, and it was not
Yeah.
great. And now we're spoiled with like like Marvel CDB basically being near launch, right, of this stuff, and like all the resources that kind of come up around a game like immediately from people who played the previous kind of co-op LCGs and stuff.
Hmm.
It's been really neat to see all these resources and stuff kind of pop up.
Yeah, sweet. I've recapped a ton of my 5-year moments in a YouTube series recently, so I won't hash on too many of them. My main one again is like getting the game the first time. I was super hyped about it just from like having seen Gen Con spoilers and having tried to like kludge together the rules before the rulebook was released. And then I was able to pick it up before like a family vacation. So it wasn't a family vacation. It was my family staying here and me going back to see my three brothers and my dad for his retirement. So it was just me and my three brothers and parents. And no one really wants to fill the awkward silence. So instead, I was like, here's this game we're all going to play. And I forced everyone to learn it with me, which was super fun. And now
Do
they
they
all
still
still play.
play?
Which is, two of them do. So that's pretty good. Two of four. Two of three. Because I'm one of four. So three of four. That's how math works. So it's pretty good odds. It's a C, actually, in college. But, I'll round it up. We'll curve it up. So that was a really good memory. I have strong memories of every time a box came out, like the community reaction. That's always been fun to me and interesting to watch. It's like a whole ecosystem in itself of watching the spoilers come out, maybe watching a leak come out, maybe not, depending on who you are. And then like people's reaction based on what they thought the box was going to be to what they got is always, it's fascinating because we used to not necessarily get as many opinions and things like that, right? You had to listen to a show like this and see what these knuckleheads thought, but it was a lot harder to communicate about which box was the best and which pack was the best and things like that.
Yeah.
GeoCities, it was a life.
Yeah, and overall, it's been a really fun journey. I can't believe it's been 5 years
Yeah,
in a lot of respects, right? Maybe that's just a sign because we're old now.
I had less
But
kids back then.
yeah,
Isn't that
did you
crazy?
have free time back then?
I did. I still do a little bit. And my son's that's the other exciting thing, right? So my son was like 3 when this game came out. So now he's 8, and now he actually wants to play it. It used to be like he would want to play it, and really it was me playing two-handed, and he would just hold the cards for me in like the chair next to me. But now he like actually wants to play it. He's reading, so he can read the words. He can memorize cards to certain like card art. So as long as I don't change his deck too much every time, he like gets to be engaged and play it. So his favorite hero is still Spider-Man. His favorite villain is still Rhino. So he hasn't progressed very far from the core set. We're working on
I mean, that's
progression.
still my favorite hero.
And my favorite villain. No, maybe not. So that's been fun too. Well, and I think one of our other favorite memories is obviously Con of Heroes, which is going to be the next topic. So should we jump to Con of Heroes stuff? What are we doing for this? Talking about the event, I guess, right? So Con of Heroes is coming up, and we are now in full-blown spoiler season for Con of Heroes. But Terrence and I are the designers of all those insane, crazy custom cards you get when you come to Con of Heroes. Remember,
I'm
they
sorry.
are 100% not official, so they are not balanced nearly as well as real content, but we try. And this year we started a little bit early, so I had some cool statistics for you all from my calendar from previous years. So for years 1 and years 2 of Con of Heroes, we started like writing designs into Photoshop in like January. So like right now is when we started designing.
And by we, you mean you.
All of us. You too. Come on. Take credit. For the last 2 years at least. In year 3, Terrence pestered me enough that we started in December. Really pulled ourselves in. But this year, the first draft of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, the first draft was like in our little Photoshop template as far back as September of 2024. So we've been cooking stuff for a while, and boy have we been cooking. So another fun fact, every year we've gone up in how much art we've had to commission, how many cards we've had to print. So last year we had to commission like, I think I counted the other day, it was like 20-something pieces of art. And this year it's like 49. So it's a remarkably higher number of art pieces that you're going to get to see. And even if you're not attending Con of Heroes, you can print all of these at conofheroes.com. There's like a print and play tab. You can just print them to your printer, cut them out with scissors, and sleeve them in front of other cards, and you'll never know the difference. And they're super fun.
I see why you asked that other question now.
Which other question?
Would you prefer it if, did you like Free Modular or the Free Fanatic or
I liked
having
both, to be fair. So what we were going to talk about this time was a little bit of a spoiler, but also some of our design chit chats around the different events and things like that. So do you want to do the spoiler first, or just some design chit chat stuff?
Let's do the spoiler because I think that will
Okay.
lead into the design chit
People
chat,
will be
right?
excited. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I'm going to share my screen. In theory, this will work. Window
And I
and
guess
share
we should
screen.
read it out loud for the audio only
Totally.
folks.
All right, so I will read this side. This is the side we didn't leak into Discord a couple days ago to get people hyped. So this is a dash cost upgrade that comes in a modular set. The upgrade name is Grounded and has the condition traits. And this is not the final template if you're watching this on YouTube, but it's enough for us to show you what's going on. Because every year we have a theme at Con of Heroes, right? Year 1 was about hand hate. Year 2, my memory's gone, was about something. Year 3, Year 3 was about choices. This year is about giving you new deck building opportunities and fun stuff like that. Sort
Year
of.
two was about the Nemesis
Oh, year 2 is
and
about
Shadows.
Nemesis set. Good
Yeah,
job. You have memory. Yeah. See? Look at you. Young gun.
I'm
All
pretty
right.
sure I'm older than you.
Maybe. So it's an upgrade card with the grounded trait. Blah, 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 blah. It's an upgrade named Grounded with the condition trait. It has setup and bonded as the keywords. And I'll explain what bonded means here in a minute. And it says your identity gains the grounded trait. You lose and cannot gain the aerial trait. So any aerial characters are going to lose the aerial trait. They can't gain it from things that normally would give them aerial. And then there's a hero action. Spend a physical or mental resource to flip this card over. And then the flavor text is how's the weather way down there. The name of the modular set is High Flyin', and this is 4A. So there are 4 copies of Grounded. In a 4-player game, each player would start with a copy of Grounded in play. So not too much of a negative effect, but it takes away the aerial trait from you. And then Bonded is this new keyword that we have created just for the con for this year. And what Bonded means is if something would discard this card or make it leave play, like if you got a caught off guard, you could try to discard Grounded. But instead of discarding it, you remove all tokens from it and flip it over. So it's a 2-sided card that will never leave play. It's like a super permanent, if that makes sense. So Grounded. Yeah, you're not going to be aerial. Why would you ever want to include this modular set? And we'll go to the next one. Do you want to read the other side
Sure.
of Grounded? It's got a lot
I'll
of
read the fun
purpose.
side.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so similar to Grounded, this is a dash upgrade that is called Shield Jetpack. It has the shield and tech traits and has the bonded keyword. It has 3 fuel counters for uses and has a hero action that says exhaust shield jetpack and remove 1 fuel counter from here. And then your identity gains the aerial trait until the end of the round. If you already have the aerial trait, choose a basic power instead. Your identity gets +1 for that base power until end of the round. Everyone deserves the chance to fly.
So, the key here is that you sort of get 3 uses of the aerial trait once you get your jetpack up and running, or 3 turns of the aerial trait. This went through a ton of iterations from just giving the aerial trait and like randomly flipping back and forth a lot more frequently to the version it's in now. And it's been super fun. So the way the uses keyword works, right, is you get so many counters on your card, and when you discard the last counter, normally you would discard the card and resolve the ability that comes after it. But here now, instead, you remove that last counter, you resolve the ability, giving yourself aerial to the end of the round, and then you flip the card over back to the grounded side. So you immediately lose aerial, which is a bit of a bummer, but you've got to sort of time out your counters, if that makes sense. And yeah, so story about story about this modular set. So the original concept for this modular set was a Discord conversation in 2022. If you're wondering how early we start thinking about content, it's like 2.5 years. Not really.
You make it
That's
sound
just-
like FG.
That's just how this one happened. But our themes this year are Shield and Spider-Verse, or Spiders, Web Warriors. So this is the Shield part of that package, is this 12-card modular set. So we're not going to reveal what the other cards are. You'll have to check out some other content creators in the future and some spoiler articles to see the rest of the pack. This isn't exactly like a contract from Lord of the Rings. It's a little bit different. I akin it more to being sort of like Ship Command, where you get some card that starts in play, and then you get these cards that you're going to mix into the modular set that try to mess with the card that you have in play, being the Milano in Ship Command, or here being your Shield Jetpack and Grounded trait. We went through a ton of iterations with this one. At one point, there was like also a setup attachment for the villain that I'm really sad isn't there anymore. But the old joke used to always be after the Green Goblin pack came out was like Rhino on a Goblin Glider. So it was a two-sided Goblin Glider that was like an aerial one and a crashed one. And like aerial characters would do extra damage to grounded characters, and you would have to try to keep flipping the Goblin Glider the villain was on. But it became way too complicated, so we toned it down a little bit to something more like this. So I think that it's an interesting set, and will hopefully prove to be a lot of fun for everybody. So as you can see, if you're watching, we have art already. So on the grounded side, there's this cool picture of Iron Man who's being pinned to the ground by some sort of villain or minion, and he's unable to go aerial, which really stinks for a lot of his cards. And then on the cool Shield Jetpack side, there's this awesome picture of Hawkeye shooting an arrow downwards. So why he's jetpacking into the ground and shooting down, that's a good question, but Hawkeye does Hawkeye things.
It's because he's aerial. He has the height advantage.
Yeah, height advantage. I wish that card was good.
Well, now's your chance to make it good.
Now's my chance
Con of
to use height
Heroes
advantage in a Hawkeye
2025.
deck, and I cannot wait. Hopefully you find this fun. There's going to be at least one other modular set that gives you some sort of deck building advantage or incentive to use cards you might not normally use in a deck or use archetypes you might not normally use. And we'll be revealing that one probably sometime in February. We wanted to give you a ton of time to prepare your decks for the con. And so now is when I also want to announce there's going to be 2 events the first day of the con. There's going to be our typical like multiverse event in the afternoon. And then at night on the first day of the con, it's usually at like 7 or like an hour and a half before closing. So I think it'll be at 7. We're going to have everybody play against Rhino with the aerial traded modular set High Flying. So you can, if you choose, leave that Green Goblin Glider on Rhino, but you'll at least be able to go aerial and shoot some arrows at Rhino. So we'll see how people feel about flying on Friday night at Con of Heroes.
Nice. Yeah, like you were mentioning, I feel like you're mentioning the mechanical themes. This year's theme for sure is about giving player deck construction choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how that's going to land this year for folks, for the people who want to kind of dive into it. And I think for people who don't, it'll also be fine, right? Like you can use high flying and it's fine if you don't have aerial cards. Or maybe you'll go take some from Shield HQ and jam them in your deck.
Yeah, I think that we always try to do something new at the con, something that hopefully FFG hasn't done before, knock on wood. We haven't seen what's in the Shield box yet, so if this exists there, then I'm sorry. And we always try to not sort of repeat ourselves. I know last year we did that Legacy modular set, and it was super fun. We did not do another Legacy modular set this year, even though it's a game type that is near and dear to my heart. If we have a cool idea that makes it like truly unique and different in the future, we might do it again. But we try to like pivot to some like brand new space each year for the community that goes to the con, but also to show like how much room this game really does have to evolve and iterate and grow, right? Like we said, we're 5 years into the game and we're not out of design space yet for our little custom tiny packs, let alone like the cool stuff FFG makes. So that's pretty cool. What other design stuff do we want to talk about? Do we want to give... We don't have any other spoilers to give, but did you want to talk about other events or anything else for Con of Heroes?
Yeah, do we have other events lined up? You were just talking about Friday.
We just talked about Friday so far. We probably shouldn't go into the other ones until we have cards to show for them. You can see on the Con of Heroes website that the logo this year is a Carnage symbol. So there will be a slight symbiote theme to the events that take place on the other days as well. So you can prepare your Web Warrior decks and things like that. But needless to say, any heroes you bring will be fine for those other scenarios and super fun to play. So basically, play your favorite hero and come enjoy with the community what we've all been working on.
Yeah. I'm excited and interested to see how the community reacts to the Epic multiplayer stuff.
Yeah, I guess we did want to announce that today, right? We are going to continue Epic multiplayer stuff. We started that in year 2, and this is not just the 5th year of Marvel Champions, but this is the 4th year of Con of Heroes, right?
And -1, yeah.
And -1, that's how that works. We haven't canceled other than that year that was a pandemic, We didn't even announce it yet. So I think that in year 2, we did an Epic multiplayer that was kind of like everybody pinging things back and forth. In year 3, we tried a little bit more of a structured one. And in year 4, it's kind of a mix of the two. It's a lot of effects pinging back and forth, a little bit less structure, not necessarily like a villain or epic minion going from table to table. So hopefully it strikes a balance between the two designs. But the big thing to announce for this year is that instead of just a modular set that you mix into a scenario, this year it's an entire scenario that is designed to be an epic multiplayer or a standalone play at your table with your 4-player group scenario. So the way we've done that this year, in the past it's always been tricky, right? If we say do something in the multiverse but you're playing at one table, then you have to consider yourself another table, and it makes like templating and wording super weird. This year there's replacement cards. So instead of, I think it's something like 16 cards in the scenario get swapped out for their multiverse version if you're playing with more than one table. So you don't have to worry about like card wording being weird. You just have to look for the little symbol that tells you to swap this card for the other card before setup, and you're good to go. So it's exciting to be the first time that we're designing like a full scenario, but also terrifying because a modular set kind of affects the balance, but the scenario, it's like the whole thing. Hopefully you all like it. And if not,
Yeah, we're either going to be high
always put
flying
it
or
in your
crashing and
Galaxy's
burning.
Most Wanted box. Sorry, what was that?
I was just say we're either going to be high flying or crashing and burning.
Yeah, we will either be high flying or grounded.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the design premises that you kind of talked to me about when we were starting design last year was pitching the idea of a scenario pack. Like, what if we did a scenario pack for kind of Heroes 2025? So this is kind of where we've taken it, and it's probably the most involved I've been in the design process for me. So it's been
That's
interesting.
what he thinks.
Yeah. So if it sucks, you can blame me.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Not Kennedy Hawk's fault this year.
Yeah. And
All
then you
your
can
rules
fire me, and
questions can go to
then you're
Terrence.
stuck doing it all by yourself in 2026.
All right. Well, I guess the other thing that we were going to announce, I think that wraps up our Con of Heroes talk. The other thing we were going to announce at the end of the last segment, but I forgot because I was too excited to show you spoiler cards, was the new format for MCM podcasts. So we're going to continue trying to do in the new year our every other week recording. We're going to go back to like our origins with our MCM podcast where we used to have a segmented show. So we're going to go back to having segments, which we started to do today. We toyed with it, but the sound effects weren't ready and things like that. But we'll kind of have more of like a, not scripted, but like we'll have our segment less ad hoc. So we'll have what's been going on in the news, have any cards been spoiled, what's going on in the world of Marvel Champions. We'll have a deck garage where one of the two of us or a guest will share a deck that they've been playing recently, and we'll talk about the deck list and strategy and how fun it is. And then we'll go through 1 to 2 15 to 25 minute topics. And we're also looking for guests. So we really want to involve the community in the show, something we used to do in the past. We've had awesome people like Andy N and some of my best friends in the Marvel Champions community on. I think Hone came on for the first time as a guest. Americano back in the day came on for the first time as a guest, Addercop as well. So we really enjoy building and talking with the community. So if you're ever interested in being a third sub host as a guest slot on MCM Podcast. You can reach out to Terrence or I on Discord. You can hit us up on Facebook or email us at marvelchampionsmonthly@gmail.com. We've got a list of a couple people that I've pinged already and have graciously said that they would be excited to be a guest host as we rotate through a bunch of different people. No experience required. We just want to hear your story and your love of Marvel Champions. So don't feel like you need to be some high and mighty person. You can be a normal person just like me and Terrence. All right. Anything else for MCM Podcast, episode 111?
Any final New Year's resolutions, I guess, for 2025?
Ooh. I used to do Marvel Champions.
It's of the season, right?
It is of the season. Although this year, in real life Kennedy Hawk is doing monthly resolutions, because I found when I do New Year's resolutions, I'm really good at them till like March. And then in December, I start thinking about them, and it gets very anxiety-inducing. So this year, I'm setting a goal every month and seeing if I achieve it. But for Marvel Champions, what I would like to do, and this is the same thing I say every year, so I guess this is a cop-out, is I have this like spreadsheet with all my plays in it, and I like to play with cards and characters I haven't played with before. Now, my spreadsheet doesn't track like what cards have been in all my decks, but it's like hero and aspect. So I like to look through the pairings and be like, oh, I've never used Miles Morales with Justice or something like that. Just making up a name, not a real one. So I like to look at pairings of decks that I don't play often, but still think I would enjoy, right? I'm not going to play a protection deck with a hero that I dislike because it's my least favorite aspect and my least favorite hero. But I will play one that maybe I've overlooked and try to like bring it up in the numbers in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to continue trying to do that. I also would like to introduce more people to the game. So I think I'm going to try to continue to invite people, especially as the new content comes out, to the weekly game night so that we can grow that community, because that'll be fun, assuming there's not another pandemic.
I feel like you shouldn't jinx it by saying those words.
I'm knocking on my fake wood desk.
Nice.
What about you?
Yeah, so for me, the holidays kind of came around and people got busy, so I didn't actually get to wrap up all the weekly challenges. So I'd like to finish. I think I'm on like the last 3 or something. So we've been pretty good about doing most of them. So I'd like to kind of close those out and kind of close that chapter and kind of do some of those. It'd be fun if you want to kind of join in on some of those.
Yeah, I'm in.
And I'd love to actually play more with people in the community too. I don't know. I know like weekly game nights are a lot, but maybe trying to figure out how to do that. I guess maybe Champions adjacent, this Marvel Rivals game has come out too, and so we've been doing a lot of those, and I'd love to play Marvel Rivals with people in the community too.
Do we have an MCM clan yet, or whatever it's called?
Faction? I think you have to be like gold or something to create a faction, don't you?
Yeah, that's.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm more of a.
But yeah, we should definitely like do a MCM factions for Rivals and get people together. I just spent like 2 hours playing with SCO today, so.
Nice. All right. Well, that wraps up episode 111 of MCM Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks, and have a great time thwarting those villains. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
See ya.